Hi, I'm Hector Garcia. I'm a CPA and an advanced QuickBooks Pro advisor. But most importantly, my business is an Intuit Premier reseller, which means that my main job is to help you choose the right version of QuickBooks, sell it to you, implement it by either importing or migrating data from other systems, and educating your team on the proper use of QuickBooks, whichever version is best for your business. My phone number and my email's on the screen. If any of this stuff is not clear, don't hesitate to call someone from my team or email me directly, and I will help you clear things up. Now, let me start by making a really important pricing disclaimer. In this video, I will throw some prices out there. I'll discuss pricing, but none of that is meant to be an offer itself. I'm discussing MSRP prices only for the reference. These prices are subject to change. These prices may be different depending on when you are watching this video. So the pricing is just there for reference, but it is highly likely that it won't change that much even if you watch this video in the future. But again, I'm making the disclaimer that the pricing itself is subject to vary. Now, I created a spreadsheet which I call the version comparison matrix, in which I compare about 150 different features across all versions on QuickBooks, and I explain on which version you will see that feature, not see the feature, or maybe partially. So there's the link to the version comparison matrix. I will also put it in the description below. That's a great resource for you to start researching which version of QuickBooks you want to go for based on the specific feature. Now let's start by talking about all the different versions of QuickBooks. If you go to the QuickBooks website right now, you may find that maybe some versions are being shown to you, some are not. It all has to do with the strategy of what Intuit is trying to push. The world of QuickBooks is moving heavily into what we call now QuickBooks Online, which in some future will be just called QuickBooks, which is an evolution of the traditional desktop version of QuickBooks in an online platform. The online version of QuickBooks has 4 different flavors: the Self-Employed Edition, Online Simple Start, Online Essentials, and Online Plus. There's a 5th version called QuickBooks Online Accountant, which is not really a separate version. It's actually just a portal for accountants to access multiple clients. We're going to get into details on that a little bit later on. Then we're going to move on to the next version, which is QuickBooks Desktop. This is the traditional version of QuickBooks, the one that has the most copies and most users out there. And it starts around $249 for QuickBooks Pro. Then it moves to QuickBooks Premier and QuickBooks Accountant Edition. QuickBooks for Mac existed up to version 2016, and it was discontinued afterwards. So I wouldn't recommend even Mac users to get into QuickBooks for Mac. I will explain how Mac users can get into QuickBooks Desktop, Windows Edition a little bit later on. And then on the 3rd column is QuickBooks Enterprise. This is the version of QuickBooks that was designed for the larger companies. I'm going to get into specifically what that means a little bit later on. But the pricing of this is actually annual. It starts around the low thousands all the way to almost $8,000, depending on how many users you need. And this is an annual cost. Now you're going to see 4 flavors of QuickBooks Enterprise: QuickBooks Silver, Gold, Platinum, and Accountant. I'm going to explain all these in detail in the next couple slides. So we'll start with QuickBooks Online. QuickBooks Self-Employed is for those that are doing business, but they're not incorporated or formed an LLC. Folks just making money on the side, let's call that. They're self-employed, and they want to track those income and expenses. Now, you cannot do a balance sheet with QuickBooks Self-Employed, which is something that most accountants will feel very strongly against. But for the folks that are just there to register income and expenses, is a great solution. $10 a month, great deal. The next one is QuickBooks Online Simple Start. This is the first option in the QuickBooks Online series, which is around $15 a month, and it's pretty much for banking, invoicing, income and expense tracking. Can't do much with that edition. The next one is going to be QuickBooks Online Essentials. That's about $35 a month. That gives you 3 users, and it also allows you to track accounts payable. So you can track accounts receivable, invoices, and accounts payable bills. It can also do a couple things like time tracking, recurrent transactions, and I don't want to get into too much detail, but that's the version that most people start with. Then there's QuickBooks Online Plus, which is about $50 a month. It gives you 5 users, 5 people can work on it at the same time, and it adds inventory, budgeting, class tracking, and basic job costing. If I'm going to put someone in QuickBooks Online, I'm probably trying to put them in QuickBooks Online Plus, just because those little bells and whistles do come handy. And as I mentioned earlier, QuickBooks Online Accountant Edition is actually a portal, an interface for accountants to access their clients' books, and it gives you a couple of extra accountant-only type tools. If you're an end user and you want to work with QuickBooks Online because you're looking for an online platform, easy to use, not too feature-rich, you want to look at these 4. Again, if you actually have a corporation or an LLC, QuickBooks Self-Employed should be completely out of the equation because it has no balance sheet. If you don't know what that means, get with your accountant and he or she could probably explain it better to you. Now, if you have employees, you can add QuickBooks Payroll only to QuickBooks Online. QuickBooks Self-Employed will not allow you to add payroll, but QuickBooks Online Simple Start, Essentials, and Plus allows you to add payroll for about $39 a month base plus $2 per employee. Allows you to control and run your payroll internally within QuickBooks, and you can pay your taxes and file your forms all within one platform. If you want Intuit to take the responsibility of the actual payroll taxes and payroll filings, you upgrade to QuickBooks Online Full Service Payroll, which is about $100 a month as a base price. And it's got the same capabilities as the QuickBooks Online Payroll, just you're going to pass on the responsibility to Intuit, the makers of QuickBooks, on the tax and the tax forms. Now, QuickBooks Desktop, this is where the bulk of the QuickBooks users exist. There's 2 to 3 million users out there using this version of QuickBooks. And QuickBooks Desktop comes in 3 flavors essentially: QuickBooks Pro or QuickBooks Desktop Pro, QuickBooks Premier, and QuickBooks Accountant. Price range is between $250 to $600 on these 3 editions. And the way to think about these particular versions is QuickBooks Pro is the entry level. It can do a lot of things: income, expenses, inventory, and it can have up to 3 users. You can purchase up to 3 users. QuickBooks Premier is for those companies like construction companies or inventory type businesses that need a little bit more extra features. It's a little bit more expensive, but it is worth it. It's worth every penny actually. And you can have up to 5 users. And my favorite edition on this family is QuickBooks Desktop Accountant Edition. Even if you're not an accountant, I love this version because it has 2 tools that are pretty incredible. One is called Batch Enter, and the other one is called Batch Reclassify. In the description below, I'm going to put links to a whole bunch of videos that compare these different versions and explain what these different features are so you can understand it a little bit better. We're just doing a really sort of high overview at the moment. But that QuickBooks Accountant Edition is the one that most people call our company for to purchase, because when they see Batch Enter and Batch Reclassify, they're completely sold. It's a really, really nice feature. Now, all 3 of these have a version that adds the word plus to it: QuickBooks Desktop Pro Plus, QuickBooks Desktop Premier Plus, QuickBooks Desktop Accountant Plus. What that plus means is that you're going to be paying per year instead of a one-time software cost. And the upfront cost is a little bit lower, but you are going to be paying every year for that subscription. And in exchange, you get support from Intuit. Well, support in quotes, because it's very difficult for me to call that support, because they're not really accountants. They don't really understand what you need at the end when you call. But at least on the technical side, they can help you troubleshoot basic issues. Anyway, you go with the Plus edition if you want that support and if you want to do annual upgrades. But you have to pay annually. In my opinion, if you can still buy a one-time license and get a couple of years, 3-4 years out of it, I think it's worth it for you to get a one-time license instead. And when you need support, you hire someone like me, another QuickBooks Pro advisor, that would actually help you solve problems instead of just troubleshoot basic technical problems. With QuickBooks Desktop, you can also add on payroll. So if you want to run payroll in your QuickBooks Desktop, you can add enhanced payroll for about $39 a month. It's very feature rich. It even does job costing in heavy detail, which I strongly recommend, but you still would have to do the tax forms and the tax payments yourself. There's a full service edition in QuickBooks Desktop that is really called QuickBooks Desktop Assisted Payroll, which is about $100 a month. And it's just like enhanced payroll, but again, you're going to pass on the responsibility of tax filings and tax payments to Intuit, the makers of QuickBooks. So it's really up to you if you want to pay $40 a month and control the taxes and forms yourself, or you pay $100 a month. You get the full features of QuickBooks Desktop Payroll, but you pass on the responsibility to a big company so you don't have to worry about it. At the top of the line of the QuickBooks family is the QuickBooks Enterprise or QuickBooks Desktop Enterprise. The reason why I add the word desktop in it is because the experience, the software, is identical to Pro, Premier, or Accountant. As a matter of fact, you really can't tell which version you are unless you actually look into the guts of it and find out what it is. They're pretty much identical in almost every way. However, the Enterprise editions are really meant for a little bit larger companies. You have robust user access permission structure where you can choose what areas you want the user to be able to view, modify, delete, that sort of thing. You can manage more than 14,500 list items, which is a limitation that QuickBooks Pro, Premier, and Accountant have. If you have a combination of items like products and services, customers, vendors, and that combination adds to 14,500, your QuickBooks Pro, Premier, and Accountant will pretty much lock. And you would have to move on to QuickBooks Enterprise, or you have to delete data in order to move forward. So QuickBooks Enterprise is really meant for those larger companies that need just a much larger database. Now, QuickBooks Enterprise Gold, which is the next version after Silver, is pretty much the same thing as Silver, but it includes the enhanced payroll subscription as part of the annual subscription. And it's actually, for the most part, a lot less than buying the payroll subscription separately, because it's a one-time annual fee and it doesn't really change based on the number of employees. So I've had a lot of clients that love their QuickBooks Pro, but have 50, 60 employees. And when they pay $2 a month on the payroll side, on the regular version of QuickBooks, it actually comes out more than buying the Enterprise edition, even with the annual subscription with the payroll bundled in. We would have to evaluate case by case to see what the pricing difference would be. But that Gold basically just adds the payroll subscription to it. Now, the Platinum edition, which is the highest version of QuickBooks Enterprise, adds two major feature sets. One is called Advanced Pricing, and the other one is called Advanced Inventory. I would put links in the description below to videos where I explain those. I need a whole hour to explain what those things are. But if you're a company that manages inventory and you need to track multiple inventory sites, barcodes, lot number, serial number tracking, those sort of things, you probably want to go and look into that Platinum edition. There's also a special edition called QuickBooks Enterprise Accountant that gives you the same advanced inventory and advanced pricing as Platinum, but it doesn't give you the payroll. And it's slightly less expensive than the Platinum edition, but in most cases, I think the Platinum is actually a better choice. All versions of QuickBooks Enterprise are annual subscriptions. In some cases, you can pay monthly. In some cases, you have to pay annually. And the pricing varies, depends on how many users. You can buy 1 user, 2 user, 3 user, all the way to 10 user. And there's a pricing schedule from 1 to 10. And there's also a 30 user edition package for folks that need a lot more people working in QuickBooks at the same time. Now, to give you an idea on pricing, QuickBooks Enterprise Silver, the most basic edition of the Enterprise, a 1 user, it's $1,100. Again, that's based on the pricing as of the date of the video. Doesn't include any sales, any promotions. That price is subject to change, could go up, could go down, right? So please don't quote me on the price, but I'll give you a good reference point. QuickBooks Enterprise 1 user Silver is about $1,100 a year, where a QuickBooks Enterprise 30 user Platinum, it's about $7,600 a year. So that gives you an idea of what that range is with QuickBooks Enterprise. Now, a lot of folks don't want to get QuickBooks Desktop Pro, Premier, Accountant, Enterprise because it's not a cloud version of the software. It's not online. And the solution to that will be hosting the software. Hosting software is actually not a complicated concept. You can hire a service like Right Networks, which is Intuit's partner for cloud hosting, for $45 to $60 a user, depending on what features you want. That's per user, per month, by the way. And that allows you to have desktop software on the cloud that anyone can access anywhere that they have internet, whether they have a PC or a Mac. That's actually really important. All the Windows edition, all the desktop editions of QuickBooks I've been mentioning are Windows. So if you have a Mac, you would have to log into a server that's running the Windows application in order to be able to access it. Because as I mentioned earlier, the Mac editions are discontinued, so I wouldn't even recommend anyone to buy the Mac edition. Now, you can also self-host, which means you have to get your own Windows server connected to the internet, and then you have to give people access to that server, and you can essentially have your desktop service on the cloud, but completely hosted by yourself. Now, that will require you to hire IT people, IT experts to be able to do that and make it secure and all that stuff. But that's actually not really complicated to find. I have an excellent IT person that works with my clients and my office. So if you need one, you can always contact me and I will give you that referral. But I'm sure locally you can find great IT people that can help you do a self-hosting setup pretty easily. Now, I'm particularly excited about desktop editions of QuickBooks. I put a lot of my clients and my leads in desktop editions because I think the desktop editions are just much more powerful for inventory, for reports, for customization. So I wrote this article. The link is there on the screen. I'm also going to put it in the description where I do a pretty in-depth comparison of Pro, Premier, Accountant, and the 3 versions of Enterprise. So you get a good idea on why I would go with a desktop edition and which specific desktop edition based on the feature that you want. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, I know it's a lot of information to digest. I mean, I've been doing this for over 10 years and it's pretty much easy for me, but for anyone buying QuickBooks, you're looking at things that are $30 a month. You're looking at things that are $7,600 a year. It's a pretty big range, especially when you're also going to add cloud hosting into a desktop edition. It's a pretty big wide range and it's hard to make a decision. Call us at the office or email me directly your needs, and I will really, really work hard towards helping you choose the right version. Yes, we are resellers. We're going to try to sell you QuickBooks. That's our job. But I promise you that we're going to try to get you into the edition that works best for you, because our line of business is really training and implementation. And we want you to be happy with your software so you keep hiring us for support and accounting services. Again, my email is hector@garciacpa.com. There's my phone number. I would love to hear from you and I would love to help you choose the right version of QuickBooks.